Okay, so when I hear the brand name Aprilia, the first thing that comes into mind are either sports bikes or performance off-road adventure bikes. But this is an exception. It's the SRGT 200 by Aprilia. So there you go, the SRGT 200 by Aprilia. And at first glance, it does look like an Aprilia, especially these headlights and these lines here up front. But when you look at it from the side, it now looks like an ADV scooter, much like the Honda ADV 160. Because a lot like the Hondas, these are marketed as urban commuters that can do some slight off-roading. So in short, it's technically a sportier version or a more premium version of the Honda ADV 160. But obviously, there's more to it than just that, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. Okay, so first things first, there's actually two variants for this bike. So there's the basic SRGT 200 and then there's the more flashier version, the SRGT 200 Sport. So performance-wise, they're all the same. Really, the only difference is the price and of course the cosmetic changes like the wheels. Instead of the 14-inch black rims, you get bright red rims and you also get more Aprilia branding here, a different seat material or seat pattern, and of course you also get the signature red by Aprilia, which I think looks the best for this bike, and personally for me I think is the only option to go when you're getting this bike. But what's interesting is the iGet technology. And if you're familiar with Vespa scooters, you've probably seen this badge already. And if in case you guys don't know it yet, Piaggio Group actually owns a Vespa, Moto Guzzi, and Aprilia. Hence, some of their models share parts, technology, and much like the Vespa, the Aprilia SRGT 200 is actually made in Vietnam alongside the Vespas. But going back to the engine, as per the Aprilia guys, this is actually a unique engine, at least here in the Philippines, nor is it a board-up version. But this transmission cover looks very familiar. I think this one in particular is shared with the Vespa Primavera. Obviously, the badge has been changed a bit, and I'm pretty sure some internal parts are also shared with the Vespas. But other than that, sound-wise and engine performance-wise, it does feel like a Vespa. You still have that traditional Vespa rumble. This one really vibrates a lot for a modern scooter with a modern styling. But once it gets moving, it smoothens everything out. And it's actually a very fun bike to ride with this long travel suspension. And this is actually my favorite part of this bike. This is a Showa front suspension. And if you guys don't know Showa, they make performance suspensions. So for starters, sadly, we only have ABS here up front. So the rear doesn't come with ABS as standard. I wish the sport version came with dual ABS. That I think would be more ideal to at least separate the two variants more. But then again, I think for a daily commuter, what we're getting here is already enough. And much like the other ADV scooters, it's also equipped with a dual sport rubbers. Well, not this one in particular. Biker Box or Aprilia Philippines actually changed it to a Mitas road tires just for this demo bike. Okay, so detail-wise, everything here looks very premium. You have wavy disc brakes, you have braided cables. But if there's one thing that I don't like about this bike is the faux carbon like this one. So there's even a sticker here that says #BeARacer. So yeah, this bike is clad in faux carbon. I mean, it does look nice if you look at it from afar. And surprisingly, it does match the look of the bike. And it's actually more resistant to scratches. Hence maybe the reason why they put it on places where you hit it the most, like this ones. But yeah, I've never really been a fan of faux carbon. But that's just my personal preference. Going back to the details and staying true to its sporty looks, there's actually passable air duct here for aerodynamics. I'm not really sure if it does anything, but it sure does look nice and it sure does match the theme of the bike, and I kinda like it. Alright, moving to this side of the bike, we still have traditional sporty styling cues like this ones and this ones. And we also have a hidden foot peg. A pretty beefy hidden foot peg. We also have your exposed radiator here on the side. So this is a liquid-cooled CVT engine. Obviously, it's also Euro 5. And interestingly enough, I think we also have a pretty lightweight swing arm here. Okay, so moving here at the rear, we have Aprilia branding here at the seat. We also have some pretty standard looking grab rails here and some really nice LED wraparound taillights, which I'm a big fan of. And if viewed from the rear and at night, it does look very nice and unique and distinctly Aprilia. Continuing here at the back, I'm not sure what this thing is because there's a mudguard here, a mud flap there, and another mudguard here. But design-wise, I actually like this one and it surprisingly works. Okay, so continuing down here, we have a pretty busy looking tire hugger. So we have rear reflectors, side reflectors, and a Euro spec plate mount. That is clearly not meant for the Philippines. So personally, if I owned this bike, I'd probably just remove this whole plate bracket here and keep the rear tire hugger. styling wise, it does still resemble an Aprilia with the Italian chevron and obviously the Aprilia name on it. It's very aggressive, it's very sharp looking, and it's still unmistakably Aprilia, especially if you look at it here up front. So the whole bike itself is equipped with full LED high beams, you have full LED low beams, LED DRLs, LED turn signals, and obviously the rear LED tail signal. Alright, so before we hop on the bike, let's first check out the compartment. So one thing that I like here is that you don't have to turn on the bike or the ignition to be able to access the compartment. So just put it in, twist to the right, and then press the electronic button here to open the compartment. So compartment wise, it opens almost vertically, more than enough space for you to search your way through the compartment. But the compartment itself is actually not that deep. You can pretty much just fit a half-face helmet and a couple of stuff here. But for a daily commuter, I think this is more than enough for my needs. Alright, so now let's hop on the bike. And like I said, it's a lot like the Honda ADV 160 with the step-in floorboard. So the seat itself is comfy. There's not much load lift for the pillion, so you're pretty much on the same level with your pillion. And I really like the indentation here. It perfectly fits my build. But other than that, it's pretty standard but still comfortable. Driver-centric control-wise, there's nothing much here. Well, there's a pretty flimsy compartment here on the left side that has a USB charger. Although this compartment is too small, so I'm not sure what else you can fit here. And then moving down here, we have access to your 9-liter fuel tank. But floorboard wise, I'd say it's pretty average. I'm 5'7" with a 9.5-inch US shoe size. And this is the space that I have. So you have room for you to stretch your legs, but not by much as you can tell, unless maybe if I move backwards. But then again, this standard position is what works best for me. Alright, so now let's move to the controls. So like I said, it's a pretty basic scooter and it only has front ABS as standard, and that's pretty much it. But we have a pretty long handlebar, but it's also incredibly useful because this bike has a really sharp turning radius. So it goes all the way in, almost to the point that it's touching my leg. So this bike is really perfect for city commuters if you want to filter through traffic and go to tight spots. And although the handlebar is pretty wide and long, I'd still think that this bike is relatively easy to maneuver. Okay, so material-wise, everything feels premium. I like the side mirrors here. I just wish that the rubber grips came with an Aprilia branding. But now let's move to the controls. So up here, we have your low and high beam, as well as your flasher lights. And we also have a mode button here. This is actually meant to cycle through the displays. So we have your kilometers per liter here, battery voltage meter. And of course, my favorite information here is the estimated kilometers left for what's inside your gas tank. So right now, we still have 180 kilometers left on our almost full gas tank. Display gauge wise, everything looks clean and pretty basic. I'm a big fan of symbol gauges, and they even spent the extra thought on animating the display when you turn on and turn it off. Okay, so moving back to the left controls again, we have your auto idle stop button. So when you toggle it on and you stop on a stoplight, the engine will cut off after a few seconds, and to turn it back up again, you just press the acceleration and the bike will start running again. Similar to the Hondas and the Yamahas, it's an eco function, so it's technically meant to save on gas, but personally, I just like to keep it off all the time. And then other than that, we have pretty basic controls like the left and right turn signals and the horn. And at the center, we have this really nice handlebar clamp that has Aprilia branding on it. Okay, so moving here to the right, we have a dedicated button for a Bluetooth phone dongle. Sadly, the model that we have here doesn't have this, so we'll just skip this. And then lastly, we have your kill switch and ignition button. Alright, so height-wise, I can flat-foot the bike. I'm 5'7", but then again, the seat inseams are pretty wide, so it makes the bike look even taller than it is. But I'm pretty sure if you're an average height Filipino, you can pretty much daily this every day, because even though it's a pretty tall bike, all of that weight is located down below, so it has a pretty low center of gravity, hence it's easier than normal to maneuver. And sadly, windshield is also not adjustable, but for a daily commuter, I think this works just fine for me at least. But who is this bike for, and what actually stands out about this bike compared to its Japanese competitors? So first things first, obviously for me, I think it's the long travel suspension and those dual sport 14-inch tires. For daily use, I'm really impressed with the suspension on this thing. It absorbs all the humps and potholes. And overall, I'm really just impressed with its overall performance. But for some reasons, the dual rear shocks doesn't seem as good as the front. Or maybe because the front are just that good. Maybe that's the only reason why I noticed the rear. But also, another thing that I like are the brakes. So the brakes are pretty stiff, but very responsive. Almost to the point that it's effortless to skid the rear tire. So I would definitely love to have ABS on that one. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid bike. It has this rugged ADV look on the side and a sporty front with a top speed to match. So with the time that I had with this bike, I've maxed it out at around 115 kilometers per hour. And I'm pretty sure you can squeeze a bit more out of it. But yeah, overall engine performance wise, power is pretty linear. So from low to high, it's pretty much flat. And it's not a bad thing. I think this scooter is perfect for commuters. It's more powerful and torquier than most scooters on road at least. So you wouldn't have a hard time commuting with this one or overtaking most scooters on the road. But it still doesn't answer who I think would get this bike. And personally, I think this bike is for someone who's been riding for quite a number of years, or more specifically, someone who owns a sports bike but still wants a European daily scooter, but not a classic one or a Vespa. So personally, I think this bike is like the European version of the ADV 160, but I also think this bike is a sportier version of the Vespa. But yeah, given a choice between the Vespa, the ADV 160, and the Aprilia SRGT, between those three, I'd still choose this because of its modern looks. Obviously, it's an Aprilia and it can do some slight off-roading. Overall, it's a little bit more money than its Japanese counterparts, but it's a given since this is a European bike. And obviously, it won't be as common as the Japanese scooters that floods the market. Plus, it's an Aprilia, an Italian bike, so you'll get a lot of stairs on the road, and that's for sure. Finally, just one tip for you guys. If you plan on getting the scooter, I highly suggest that you get the SRGT Sport with a red colorway or at least the lime colorway. Because if you're gonna get an Aprilia or an Italian bike, might as well get the signature flashy one. And with only a few thousand pesos of difference, it's totally worth it. If you guys are interested with this model or any other Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, or Vespa, you can check them out over at Biker Box down south near Sucat. Or if you live up north, you can check out Aprilia in Caloocan. And I think that's all, folks. Hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.